So step one, let's go and address the issue of roles and groups and permissions. Coming up to the top, administration, please go to users, groups, and roles. Selecting on roles, we're going to see all of the particular roles for all the workspaces within the system. Currently, we don't have a role created for activities. In fact, one is not created automatically for you. We need to go in and specifically state that we want a role and here are the permissions and then assign them to groups. So everything must explicitly be stated and created for a new workspace within the system. Now, since we've chosen to clone tasks, it's a good idea to take a look at the roles for tasks. We have two. We have tasks read/write, r/w, and then one down here for read. Well, let's examine that because that'll give us a good guide of how to create this new role. Taking a look at the permissions on this role, we can see over on the right all the permissions that this role has. On the left are the permissions we could have. Remember that not all of these are going to make sense. Over on the right we see that, well, we definitely want to have attachments, we want to have grid, milestones. Over on the left, bill of materials is not something we'd want. These are permissions and settings for different types of workspaces. But just focusing on this, we see we want to have the attachments tab on, the grid tab, milestones, and workspace. So let's go and create a new role for our new activities workspace. Okay, up at the top, we're going to click on New Role. We'll select the workspace. This was our activities workspace that we just cloned from tasks, and we'll give it a name. And we'll follow the naming convention that we saw earlier. We'll give it the name of the workspace, and then in brackets we'll put read/write. And after this we can make one for read. There's no hard and fast rule as to what you name these, but it's a good idea to decide on a naming convention and go with it. This helps out later on when other people might come in to partake in administration, or you call Autodesk for support or engage consulting. If everything is consistent, it's easier to troubleshoot and work with. All right, we've created the role. Now we need to click on Create Role and add permission. So just having the role created is not enough. We need to decide from the left what features we want over on the right. So as we examined before, we had the ability to view attachments. We had a grid tab on. And I'm just holding down Shift Select. By the way, you could double click, double click, double click, double click, move these over, but I like to just grab the logical groupings and send them over onto the right. So you see we're starting to build out the permissions that we have that define this role and ultimately define how the workspace is going to look. Okay, a few more are going to be needed. For this we'll come down to Special Permissions, and I'll take these three: Change Ownership, Share Reports, View Owner and Change Summary section. Add that over onto the right. You can see it adds it down here. Next we want to be able to view the workflow. And viewing workflow will open up that Workflow Actions tab and allow us to move a particular item through its workflow states. And finally, down at the bottom, some very necessary ones are needed. So number one, in order to see the workspace even appear in the list, we need to be able to view items. This means to view the records that are in that workspace. This little permission here alone is the make it or break it. You'll be able to see the workspace or not. So we definitely want view items, add, delete, and edit. But there is one other one. We want to make sure we can view records owned by others. And optionally, we'll view the change log. That was that last tab that was up there, the history tab. So now that we're done, we have a well-defined role for our new activities workspace. Now when you're done, down at the bottom we have the ability to save, And of course, we can take it and save and manage groups. We've created this role, but which particular groups have access to it? So we certainly want to add the admin group to be able to see it. And this is a good first step. When creating a new workspace and you're sandboxing it, the admin group should be the first one added just to do a what if. If it doesn't look right, we can always change it. Later on, we can bring other people in. So this is in activities. There might be multiple groups that could partake in activities, but we don't want them to see it just yet. So as a best practice, leave it to the admin group, and we can always wake it up later on and add in engineering and add in operations, etc. So we'll say, all right, the admin group can see this. Now one final step, and this is one of the rare times that you'll have to do this. We need to log out and log in, and then we'll be able to see where this is up on our main menu. Okay, let's log back in. We've just created the activities workspace, cloned off of the tasks workspace, so we should expect that much of the same information is there. The new workspace will appear under the first category by default, and we'll come to this in a little bit and find out, well, where can we move that to? So when we come to the main menu, program management, here we see activities. There are no records, of course, because we've not created one, but let's go and just start the process by creating one. And you'll notice that we have task ID. Well, we may want to actually change that. Activity ID, where did it get the word task from? It got that from the cloned task workspace. So here's an opportunity to perhaps go in and do some modification before we roll it out to the rest of the group. Title, responsible. This was the field that we had added in an earlier part of this tutorial. Going in and choosing from all the users in the system. And we have the rest of the information that we can fill in down below. So let's go in and test this out. And we'll fill out some information. Level of effort, medium, and days, we'll say 7. And here's the grid that we have down here. Let's save this out, and we have our first record, our first item inside of our new cloned activities workspace. Now, as I mentioned before, task ID, we may want to change that. We've seen earlier in the tutorial the ability to add a new field. We can also go in and rename a new field, going through those same steps. But let's next talk about, well, why is this here? Why did it put it seemingly right at the top? That wasn't by chance. We actually have the ability to go in and move this activities workspace to wherever we need it to be. Okay, so finally, the location of a new workspace can be dealt with from the administration, setup area, and on the General tab, at the very top, we have Main Menu Designer. The Main Menu Designer is going to show us a layout of all of these categories and the workspaces. So we see Activities is up here. If we wanted, for instance, to move activities to another category, we could, or we could simply put this down at the bottom, save the layout, and now this is something that we do need to log out and log in to realize. All right, logging back in for the final time in this tutorial. Coming up to the main menu, see Program Management, and here we now see Activities has been moved down to the bottom of the flyout list, and there's our initial record.